You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast.
Hi, it's Joe, and today we get to hear a very special interview with Laurie. Now, if you're part of any of our programs or you've emailed us or connected with us on social media, you've most likely heard from Laurie. She's absolutely amazing and loves supporting this community. She joined our team over a year ago and has been growing with us ever since. Today, she and Michelle connect about her personal story and her personal experience with addiction. As always, let's make a judgment-free space for Laurie as she shares her personal story.
So how do you feel about doing this? Are you okay?
I am. I'm
Good.
hoping that my story, whatever we discuss, will help someone out there, and I just feel it's good to have it be out there. We always say to give a voice to it, and I'm at that point where, for many years I didn't talk about it, and being with all of you and with Over Addiction, it's put me in a whole different mindset, and knowing that sharing is way better. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you for being brave enough to talk, and I'm especially excited to talk about pornography addiction because I don't know if we've talked about that much, but that is a very real thing. So
it is.
Did you like this is with your is this pornography addiction with your second husband or your first husband? Remind me.
My second husband.
Okay.
So my current husband.
Got it. Your current husband. Okay. And then how did you find out, did you suspect anything? And then how did you feel once you found out?
I started noticing or suspecting something was maybe off, not necessarily pornography per se, but just something was off about 6 months after we got married. So by that time, we had been married or had been together for a couple of years, for about 2.5 years. But I would say about 5 or 6 months after we got married, I just started noticing we weren't intimate as much. And, like in the first year, it's still the honeymoon phase, and you just got married, and it just seemed like he was kind of pulling back more and more, and I would question it. And he would just say, well, I just, don't need to be intimate as much anymore, or work came into play as far as him being tired or my long work hours, and it just wasn't a priority, I guess, would be a good word. So I kind of just let it go. And then it was not long after our 1-year wedding anniversary, a close relative of mine actually reached out to me and some of her close friends and let us know that she and her husband were going to be separating because her husband had a pornography addiction, and she had tried for several years to kind of work with it, and it just wasn't something that was going to happen for her. And so I flat out asked my husband if he watched pornography, and he flat out admitted it. He said, yes, I watch online pornography, and it kind of just took me by surprise. And I said, well, how often and when? And he said, it's almost every single day, and it's always when I'm gone. So if I was at work, or if I was at happy hour with friends, or just any time that I wasn't around. And so that took me by surprise.
How'd you feel?
Very hurt and betrayed. And of course the feelings start coming in of not being good enough and what's wrong with me, that I wasn't enough for him, that he wanted to seek out watching other women. And that was hard. So that it took a toll. It definitely took a toll.
Did you feel angry?
I think angry that he did it, and angry that he wasn't more forthcoming when I had started questioning him about 6 months prior about our lack of intimacy. I wish that at that time maybe he would have brought it up. His excuse was, well, I've always watched pornography. It's something I've always done. I didn't think it was an issue. I just figured it was something all men do. And so it kind of made me angry when he was just kind of blowing it off as that. And, yeah, I'd say just angry, but hurt. Hurt was a huge feeling for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I think like tons of men do watch pornography, right? Like that would be a natural defense for any guy to say, yeah, it's what we do. It's like part of the man broski culture, you know, we do this and it's a natural way to relieve stress. So how did you fight that kind of like opinion? How did you know this doesn't feel right to me? Or was there a part of you that was like, yeah, I should probably be okay with this because I know lots of men do this?
You know, I think in my mindset and what I had said to my husband was I kind of expected if maybe if he was single and not seeing anyone and dating anyone. And I know, like what you had mentioned, it's kind of the man culture and they watch it. But once you're in a relationship with someone, that's where the concentration should be, not giving away your attention, directing it to somewhere else, and then neglecting your partner.
That's great.
And he realized that, and he said, I can see that. So it did finally get to the point where he actually agreed to go to counseling, one-on-one counseling, just him and a therapist. And he did that for a while, and he finally came to the conclusion where his trigger for wanting to watch pornography was a stress reliever for him. So something was stressful for him, if it was at work, if it was something to do with his family or anything, and he was stressed. That was his outlet, per se.
Right, that was his coping mechanism.
That was his coping mechanism, exactly.
Yeah,
so.
Which makes sense to me, because like that's what drinking is, and that's what drugs are. It's the way to cope with unwanted feelings, right? So what do you do?
Absolutely.
You do something. But walk me through this, because I am positive that most households have had a conversation, if we were all being real, about pornography in our marriage and its involvement. And so how did you go from like, okay, he's watching it every day, to he needs counseling? I mean, why not like, how come he just didn't say, hey, like, did he take responsibility? Did he claim it was an addiction when you had this conversation, or did it take a while to like convince him that he needs help?
I think once he saw how upset I was and how much it hurt me, that is when he took responsibility. And I had mentioned to him that I think he needed to speak to someone about it, and particularly because I had asked him many times, and I would say this would be over the course of a month after I found out about the addiction. I had asked him many times, why? You know, why? What is it? Why do you need to watch it? Why are you doing that and ignoring me? And to say that I think you need to go to therapy, or at that time too, I was in counselor or couples therapy for both of us to go. And he finally agreed and said, yes, I do think I need to speak to someone. And I think knowing at that time too, it was something that was going to help me because I was angry as well and frustrated, and I was having a hard time moving past this betrayal.
So did he stop when you asked him? Like, did he stop when you expressed how much it hurt you? Or no?
He did stop. he did stop. But I don't know if that's the thing. He did stop, and I do believe he stopped for quite a while. However, there was a couple of years later that there was an incident where, not that I was searching on his phone, I actually was using his phone to look up a pizza phone number, place to order takeout pizza, of all things. And when you look up a number, it sometimes shows what else the history was. And that's what I noticed on his history. He was seeking out, looking at naked women.
Okay,
and so I don't know for how long he did abstain from it after the initial. So I'm not quite sure on that.
Got it. Okay, so that makes
especially because he claimed that he wasn't doing anything. Now, when I did find that on his phone, I questioned him about it, and he apologized profusely and said that he would not do it anymore. So it's hard to know.
So you had to rebuild some trust there, right? I mean, how hard was that?
Very huge. I mean, it was very hard. It has taken years. And it was more so, as we say, actions speak louder than words. And I told him that. And it needed to be certain things, not only with him seeing a counselor. At that time, the job that he was at, he got to work from home quite a bit. And I told him that wasn't going to work for me. That just opened it up to too much time by himself with our computers, and, I wasn't comfortable with that anymore. So he actually started going into the office more instead of working from home. And for a while, and knowing now that it's not the right, as far as boundaries go, I did check on him quite a bit on the computer, on the history, on his phone for quite a while. No longer do I do that, but before I knew better, that is what I was doing. And we did go to couples counseling for a little bit, but that didn't work well for us. So
why? Why didn't couples counseling work? I know, like, so many women listening are being like, if I could just get him to couples counseling, everything would be fine. So what is it? What didn't work about it?
So he was initially open to doing a couples counseling. But then once we got there, I think it was a combination, not only of the counselor, we just weren't connecting well with her. So it's like when you talk about your Carol, finding your Carol. We just weren't connecting with her, and we gave it a good, 5, 6, 7 sessions with her. But then I also noticed, like, when we would be discussing his pornography addiction, or even, his upbringing, or just trying to dig into anything, he would just shut down. And that was frustrating to me, because I'm like, we're here, we're, making this time and effort and money, and all you do is sit there and shut down. And it was very frustrating. So we stopped doing the couples counseling, and it was at that point I more so just seeked out my own therapy, not with a counselor, but just a lot of online kind of soul searching. I love art journaling, and it was my way of just getting all my feelings out and finding, questions that were thought-provoking and just getting it all out for me, and that's what was helping me. So, yeah,
that's great. So, how did you end up, like, was there a moment where you were like, oh, I can trust him again? Like, I don't have to be worried all the time? Or was it just a gradual kind of process?
I would say it's a gradual process. And I think over time, knowing, as we say, you can't control what they're going to do. But I just felt different. I didn't feel like he was hiding things. I just feel like he was more open. And I
Yeah.
say honest. It's not like if I did ask him something, he would respond. It felt a different trust level than what was going on before.
I love that you just said that, because I think so many times women don't trust their feelings. And
Mhm.
so we look for proof, right? Which is why we say not to check the phones or check the history or check up, because it's all about, like, the theory behind that is it's all about trusting your gut. It's all
Right.
about learning to listen to your own instincts, because you are an incredibly intelligent woman, as we all
Thank you.
are, and learning to say, yeah, something's not right. I can't put my finger on it and I don't know why, but this isn't okay. Something's going on. Or vice versa, and saying, I trust this guy. Like, there's something new and different about him. What he's telling me
Yes.
is the truth. He's showing up in a way that he hasn't shown up for in a long time. And that's great that
Correct.
you just touched on, like, it is a feeling that you get that allows you
Yes.
to trust. And so many times I think we blame ourselves because they'll say, you don't trust me, like, why? You're so paranoid. But that's just the addiction trying to convince us that we're crazy, and we're not
Right.
crazy, and we shouldn't fall for that because we know better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
totally agree. Absolutely.
So
And,
where are you at
and
now? How is
mhm.
your marriage now? And are you at the point where you are grateful for, like, did this bring you together closer, or is this one of those things where you're still trying to, like, unpack a little bit of it?
I am grateful for it. Obviously in those first years it was very hard, but now I do feel it brought us closer together, and I feel that it made him open up more and
Mm-hmm.
be more honest, and him knowing me where I need the honesty, and if in order to not have walls go up, I need that honesty, and that's huge for me. And he knows that. And not to say that there aren't triggers sometimes. If I read something or see something and just for whatever reason I get a trigger, and sometimes it makes me want to question or go look, and I stop myself, knowing that that's not going to help anything. And knowing that it's usually just my own insecurity maybe of whatever's going on. As I mentioned to you with my health issues right now, it's hard because we're not as connected physically right now because of
Mm-hmm.
everything I've gone through. So that sometimes sneaks into my head. As
Mm-hmm.
far as, is he going to start wanting to seek it out because we aren't? But then again, it's me just knowing I stop myself again and knowing his actions again speak louder than words. I don't have any reason right now to not believe him, that he isn't watching pornography anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
I truly do believe that he's not. It just every once in a while it sinks into my,
Totally.
into my mental state. So
I believe that. I think that's residual trauma. And I mean, I'm married, my second marriage, and I'm married to a great guy who's never shown zero signs of addiction. But I get triggered by the second husband sometimes, and I'm like,
yes.
wait a second, what? Like, I've been divorced for over 10 years. Like, what is going on? And I think there's just those little speckles of trauma that never die and probably serve a very good purpose as reminders that, like, of, what we've gone through, what we've been through. But, yeah, I don't see that. And I think it's probably never going to go away because it's
Right.
a part of us. It's like a quilt, and it's, one square of the quilt is
Yes.
this trauma. So do you, but I didn't think about it until you mentioned it, which is such a good point. Now that you're, going through some health issues,
Mm-hmm.
and that is sort of a test, isn't it? To see, because you
It is.
can't provide. Like, there is probably a part of you, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be completely wrong, but like, is there a part of you that feels like, okay, if I don't meet his needs, then, like, are you ever just tired and you just want to roll over, but like you feel like, I've got to do this because if I don't, I know he's going to turn to another woman on a screen to do this? Like, is there
I
ever any
do.
kind of resentment of that?
Yes, and that does creep in. Actually, one of the most recent was actually back in September of this year. He was going to Vegas for business, which doesn't thrill me.
Lord.
Um,
Lord love a duck. No
yeah.
business should be done in Vegas. Please. If
I
anyone's
totally
listening and
agree.
starting to think of a convention in Vegas, please stop. It's
I know.
horrible.
This I told him too so many times. I'm like, why? I'm like, we have
Why Vegas?
awesome convention center here, where we live, and because it's all about me.
Totally.
Yeah. So that was one of the more, aside from current what I'm going through, but I would say September when he went on business to Vegas, and that was starting to be a trigger for me. And at that time, I was starting to not feel well as much, and I did feel like, okay, well, if I don't do, if I'm not intimate with him before he leaves, is he then going to want to seek out viewing anything, or maybe there's a woman that's going to be there that he's attracted to, or your mind just starts going. And it was just one of those things where he assured me over and over again. When he was there, he actually checked in quite a bit, and knowing that if I needed to, or at any time, he gave me his itinerary, so I knew where he was going to be at. Yeah, it was good, because then I knew, okay, from this time to this time, they were in their conference. This is where it was at. And then their dinner was going to be at this restaurant. And after that, he was going to go back to his room. And he was very, very good about just using my fear and using my worries and checking in. And if I wanted to, I could call him at any time, after he was out of the convention there, and speak to him, do FaceTime so I could see, so he was very open with it, so that did help tremendously with my anxiety.
That's really nice. I love that you guys found a compromise. Like, it wasn't like you were like, you're not going to Vegas, forget it. And he wasn't like, screw you, I'm not sharing anything with you, I'm going. It was like, you can go, please go, because I am your grown man, and you can, I've got to trust you at some point.
Yeah.
But I love that he was sensitive enough to offer you, his itinerary and check in, and he understands that, like, this is you and you're working through this and supporting you. That is a sign of a very mature, loving man. I mean, I think when women try to stay with an alcoholic, an addict, whatever, and that person is gone and they're not considerate enough to, meet your needs because they are too selfish and they're, too stubborn, it's usually an issue where, they're not really fully recovered or interested in healing, or they're doing exactly what you don't want them to do. They're not allowing you to check up on them because they don't want to get busted. So I always, whenever I hear a woman say, like, he checked in, he let me know, he's being very thoughtful, that's courageous on so many levels. That gives me hope for that relationship so much.
It does, and he's such a good man. We always talk about how those that we love suffering from addiction are good people, and he truly is. I mean, he is one of the most sweet and thoughtful men I've ever known. I mean, he really is. And it just, he truly is my best friend, and it just, he is thoughtful, and that has made it so much easier, even though it took some time to get there as far as rebuilding the trust again. Just knowing that he is a good man, and I know that in my deep down, like I know that he is, and he's very loving and supportive of whatever needs to happen for me to continue to trust him, and that's what he is open to.
Laurie, that's so great. And I love, like, also that he was willing to go to couples counseling. I know it didn't work, but the fact that he was closed up about talking about pornography, it wasn't his fault. It's the fact that the counselor didn't make it safe enough for him to do so. That's on the counselor, not on him. He's there showing up, putting his trust and faith into somebody else to kind of steer the ship. And she, whoever she was, wasn't doing a good enough job, you know, to make him feel safe enough to do that. And so I always say, like, you know, there's a lot of bad counselors out there that don't get addiction.
Yes.
There's some very good ones, but you have to dig. Just because you're going to an authority or somebody who has read about it in a textbook doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to talk about it in real life or care for somebody that's struggling with the disease of addiction. So I love that he went. And I love that you were, like, combined, like, no, not for us. And you tried long enough. It wasn't just one time. Gosh, you gave it enough.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, we tried it. And I fully agree with you. It wasn't his fault. He did say that he felt like the counselor was blaming him constantly, and he just felt attacked during it. And I could see that.
Wow.
You know, for me, I just wanted some other answers, but I feel like the way that she was doing it was full on blaming him instead of helping us as a couple move forward together on how to rebuild the trust. And I had asked her and told her many times during the sessions, I just want to learn how to trust again. Like, that's my huge thing. I want to learn the tools. And any suggestions, because I had not come across anything that's helped me so far, and she couldn't deliver that. And it was kind of at that point we both, you know, my husband and I both knew it wasn't the right fit for us.
Yeah. That's really awesome that you knew that, though. Way to go. That's evolved. That's huge. So you are in a good place in your marriage, and he clearly is a wonderful human being. And
he is.
Yeah, like, why, I mean, I don't mean to sound rude, but, like, why not? You know, like, why did this not happen to him? Because it is so darn common for men and actually women now. Like, pornography for women is becoming a thing.
Right.
And, I mean, from what I studied about it, and I have not gone into, like, serious amounts of research, but I have young teenage boys, and I was like, all right, time to get educated. It sends you know, okay, I'm going to mess this up, so it's going to sound very unprofessional because I'm not a professional in addiction, but the point is that it's the dopamine. It is a stronger level of dopamine that is released in your brain watching pornography than dopamine is by doing cocaine, when you do cocaine.
Yep.
So pornography is stronger of an addiction, and you get a bigger high in a way from dopamine than you do cocaine, which floored me. I did not believe that. I had double, triple check that.
Yes.
But why? So, like, of course it's going to happen to the good guys because they're doing what a lot of guys do. And if it makes you feel good, why wouldn't you go back to it, right?
Exactly.
So I really understand why this is an epidemic and that it's happening in very quietly in a lot of homes. And I even think, like, I probably know women in my circle that are struggling with this that don't even, like, I don't even, you know, I don't know. And they're probably very good friends.
Right.
But it's like, do you think it has more of a stigma than it does than, like, drinking or drugs?
I think so, just because I think and more so too for the woman involved, or, the partner. It doesn't have to be a woman. It can just be a partner.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's almost saying, well, what's wrong with your relationship? I think from someone, that might be like the first judgment that someone gives if you are thinking about it or asking about it is, well, their relationship, what's wrong with them, and easy to pick it apart. I don't know. I just think it's not as talked about, and I think it needs to be, because like you said, I think it is going on so much more than we realize, and so many more homes. I can guarantee too, in a group of friends or a group of, when my son was in high school and we had a huge group of parent friends that we'd get together, I'm sure a lot of them were maybe dealing with something too. You don't know, but I also at that time didn't feel comfortable enough opening up or saying anything to anyone else at that time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's just more hesitation, and because it's something that's so intimate, that maybe it's a little bit harder. And I don't know. I don't know if there's like a certain amount of shame, around it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a little bit harder, to discuss. I do.
I don't know. I think it's also generational. Like I was talking about, of course, I talk about addiction with my kids, like to the point that they want to jump out of the car every time I mention the word addiction. And they're like, not again. But I was talking to them about like, okay, so who out of your friends is watching porn? Like, is this a thing? And my daughter's friends are watching porn. And I was like, what? Could not believe that young girls in high school, these are high school girls, are watching porn. I've always just assumed it was for guys. And I was trying to think of like, okay, when was the first time I ever saw pornography? And I was trying to remember, and of course, I think it was when I was in New York City with my dad, which sounds really weird, but let me explain. Yeah, I just said that out loud, and I'm like, nope, wrong way to phrase that, Michelle. I was staying at a hotel with my parents, and I remember my dad being in the bathroom, and I was clicking through channels, and you know how like they have those pay-per-view, or they used to, I don't think they have them anymore.
Yeah.
But like the pay-per-view, well, me not knowing what adult TV was, I was like 13 thinking, well, I'm an adult. I don't watch cartoons anymore. And so like turn on the adult thing to preview. And my dad heard the noises from the bathroom. And he's like, Michelle? And he's very British, like very proper. And so he is like yelling. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm watching. I'm so sorry. Trying to turn it, but I was fumbling and a channel changer came out of my hand. And I'm like, not only is this incredibly awkward that I am seeing two people, sleeping together or whatever they're doing, but my dad is listening to me do this, which was horrific. But so it was like traumatizing on many levels. But I remember thinking like, that was really uncomfortable and awkward, and I can't believe people enjoy that. Like, like, why would you pay to see that?
Exactly.
But, listen, people do. Apparently I am not the normal one.
No,
it's a huge industry, right?
It is a huge industry. And going with me, I viewed it before. I think the first time really viewed it was like in college, and there was an adult bookstore, quote unquote bookstore, near the campus. And like a group of us in our dorm were like, woohoo, let's go, this will be funny. And so we did, we rented one. And it was funny to us. I say funny, just like, it was something to do and something to experience, but honestly, it wasn't something though that I enjoyed, and
Mhm.
B, it didn't stick with me either. And so it's interesting why it sticks with some
Right.
people and they want to
So
continue with
true.
it, and for others it's like, no, that's not
Yes.
my thing.
That is fascinating. That's a really
Yeah.
good point, Laurie. I wonder why too. And like
Yeah.
the little research that I have done, the porn that we saw back when we were teenagers or in college
Mhm.
is way different than the
Right.
pornography that's out there today, because what I learned was a lot of girls, because this is such a booming industry, it's no longer like the jock on steroids that's like
Mhm.
has too much spray tan. You know, like that kind of porn is like gone. And it's
Right.
now the sex trafficking. It's the women and girls that are doing this that are drugged, literally drugged, and forced to
Yes.
do this out of their, not on their free will. They're not making money.
Right.
This is not a career choice. This is
Yep.
stolen human beings being forced to, do awful, awful things that are demeaning, and they're high and they're drugged,
Yes.
and these creeps, these horrible criminals are making money off of sex trafficking. And
Yes.
the consumers and people like my daughter's friends who don't understand this, because
Yes.
obviously the criminals make it look like the girl is, quote, enjoying it or not
Right.
doing it forced around the well. These young girls are just uneducated to know what they're watching and what they're paying for is
Yep.
actually feeding a criminal act, a
It is.
crime, and it's going to
It
very
is.
bad
And
people. So it's also
exactly.
a social injustice as well, that this, that's happening not only to the consumer but to, the people that are featured in these movies.
Yes. Absolutely.
Terrible.
And I think that is something I brought up to my husband at one time too, regarding that. And about the sex trafficking, and that these girls are doing this against their will,
Mhm.
and that so many of them are they're brought
Mm.
into the industry. And like what you said, if they are high, they make it seem like they're enjoying it, but it's not. It's a huge, I just, awful, 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 awful. And I'm
Yeah.
like, and that's all it's doing is supporting it and for it to continue.
Yeah.
And that's, that
We
weighs
can't
heavy. I'm
support
like,
that. We can. There's no.
no.
It defies. Look, I am all for whatever you do
Mhm.
in the bedroom is your business, right? So you want
Right.
to get all crazy and weird. No problem. You go for that if
Right.
you're in a healthy relationship with your partner.
Sure.
No judgment from me. But
Yep.
the act of sex is so intimate, and I don't know about you, but I remember sleeping with somebody who was very unhealthy for me in a relationship when I was young, and I was in therapy, and I remember going to my therapist and saying, I just don't feel good afterwards about myself. I think I need
Mhm.
to stop having sex with this guy and
Right.
altogether and just wait until I can genuinely trust someone enough so that after I feel good about myself. And like the way I
Right.
feel afterwards should probably be an indication of whether I made a healthy choice or not. But it never occurred to
Exactly.
me to judge my choices about sex based on how I felt afterwards. I just thought there was something wrong with me. Like, oh, I'm not sleeping with the
Right.
wrong person. There's just something, like, oh, I'm just screwed up. Clearly I have issues.
Yeah. It's just so
If
hard
that
that we
makes sense.
automatically turn it back onto ourselves, and it's not like it's hard that you automatically turn it back to yourself. What's wrong with me? And it's not. It's
Right?
like what you
It's like
said.
you did with your husband.
Yes.
Like when he
Yes.
was watching the porn, you said earlier, you're like, I felt like it was something he didn't love me enough to be with me.
Right.
Why
Exactly.
do we do
And
that? so annoying.
I know. It is annoying. It is annoying. And whenever I hear, other women talking about it, I just want to reach out to them and give them a hug and be like, it's not you, I promise. It's not you. This isn't your fault. It's, I just want to let them know so bad it's not your fault.
Totally. And if we ever have any, issues, what woman does not? I don't care. Like, every human being, well, maybe there's some listening that love their body for who they are, and if they are, they've done a ton of work, and kudos to them. And call me, because I'd like to talk to you to know how the heck you did it.
Right, exactly.
As a woman, if a guy is going to somebody else, or if your partner is going to somebody else to get turned on, how do you not take that, personally? How do you not, think it has something to do with the way you are in bed or the way you look or whatever? I mean,
absolutely.
But you're right, Laurie. You're exactly right. It doesn't have anything to do with us. So how did you get to that point? How did you arrive at that? Did you need him to tell you that over and over and over again? Or did you arrive at that point on your own?
After he had done the one-on-one counseling, and when he finally narrowed it down to it being that stress was his trigger, that connected with me. That just clicked with me. Okay, I get it. Not that I want that to be his release, but I get it.
Right.
And that then made me realize, okay, it's not me. Because he would constantly tell me, it's not you. And of course, you're like, yeah, whatever. But it did finally get to that point where after he said that's his way of releasing stress, that it was like, okay, I understand. Not that I'm okay with it, but I understand. And then it was kind of moving forward with, okay, what are some other ways that you can relieve stress that are enjoyable for you, but that aren't going to harm a relationship, that's not going to make you want to turn back to viewing pornography. And so for him, that was, reading. He's very artistic as well. So it was him doing art. It was, he does like to do some video games, so he will do those, but it was redirecting his attention and his stress to something else.
That's awesome.
Also just, and reassuring me on my hard days where I'm triggered, it literally is giving me a huge hug and reassuring me, that it's not me, he's not doing anything. So it's just, over the years, it's just built up to that, okay, I do believe him, I do trust him. Even on my triggered days, I do know that he is on the right path, and that we are in a different place in our marriage than we were 10 years ago or 9 years ago when I first found out about this. So yeah, it's taken some time, but it's good though, and
I'm so happy for you, Laurie.
Thank you. And it's one of the things I want other women to know that, it is possible to stay, because so many women are like, I love him. I don't want to give up hope. I want to, so I want to be that voice of, it's going to take time, and it's going to take work, and you're going to be frustrated, and there's going to be tears many times along the way. But knowing that my husband is a good man and loving and supportive, and that's made all the difference in the world. And knowing that he truly wants what's going to be best for he and I too, and to make this work.
Awesome. So, what a good success story! I'm so happy for you. You and not that anyone is not deserving of somebody really willing and wanting to change for somebody else, but you are incredibly sensitive and you are so thoughtful, and you have been such a gift to our community and to me personally.
Thank you.
I mean, I really started this, oh my goodness, these efforts over 10 years ago. And the fact that I found you to be able to care for the women in our community, and that I can entirely hand them over to you and know that you will respond to questions and comments and just love them and care for them with thought and true kindness. It's not fake, and it's not sappy, and it's not manufactured. It's when you go in and manage our, inbox, or you go into the secret Facebook groups and comment on the women, it's real, it's genuine, and it comes across. And I don't think you give yourself enough credit, but you don't find people like that can do that consistently. So you've been incredible for me and for everyone, most importantly, for everyone in this community. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. That means the world to me. It truly does. That is, I love connecting, as you know, with other women, and I truly am blessed to be in this community, and beyond blessed that you have given me that trust. And it means everything to me. It really does. I love all of you and, all the women. I truly do, just like you do. You love all the women in our community and all the people in our community. So I truly am blessed to be here. And I can't say that enough. I really can't. I truly am blessed.
And isn't it funny? I think about this with you and with Joe too. Isn't it I didn't set out to hire anybody that necessarily had personal experience with addiction. I was looking for a very specific woman that was tender and thoughtful. And it's weird to say this, but that was just a bonus. And I think it's weird to say it, but it's one of those instances where anyone listening to this right now that is really in pain, I hope they can find hope saying, from two women that have gone through as much pain as our listeners, there is another side. And when you come out of it, you will be used to inspire and help so many other women and people just in general. So pain is very, very purposeful. So thank you for using your pain for so much good. Thank you for doing that and being willing to join me. Okay, Sweet Pea, thank you for your courage in talking about this.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate this tremendously.
Bye,
so thank you. All right. Bye. You have a good day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
We just want to give a special shout out to Laurie. Laurie, we love you so much and truly appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story with the community. And if you can relate to Laurie and her story, let us know by emailing info@loveoveraddiction.com or commenting in one of our program Facebook groups. If you're loving this podcast, we'd love it if you could leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Not only do we greatly appreciate it, but it also helps other women searching for answers find us. And lastly, be sure and subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, so you'll be sure to never miss an episode. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with Michelle's personal thoughts and beliefs. From one woman to another, bonded together by the fact we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.